Welcome everybody. If I can invite you to find a seat if you haven't done already. And it seems a shame to interrupt the conversations. There's so much energy in the room. And as I've said to a couple of people, there was a point yesterday morning when the storm was raging that I thought, is this going to happen? And I'm just so grateful to see so many people here, so thank you very much indeed. My name's Andrew McNeil. I'm the Workplace Policy Lead and Projects Advisor for the Mindfulness Initiative. I'm one of a large group of people who've put this together, and I'm very grateful for their work. I'm just going to invite the panel to introduce themselves, if I may, and then we're going to move on. So, Jamie.
It's a bit of a surprise.
I can film.
Can you hear me? Yes. All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Jamie Bristow. I'm the director of the Mindfulness Initiative.
Very good.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Ooh. So I'm Mary Foreman. I'm a chief architect for corporate banking at HSBC and the founder and chair of the Mindfulness HSBC network.
I haven't got one of those, so I'll just use my voice. Hopefully it'll be loud enough. I used to be a deputy head teacher. So my name is Chris Ruan. I'm the founder of the mindfulness practice in Parliament, where we've had 286 MPs, 450 members of staff have mindfulness training. I was an MP for 22 years, on and off, 2 years off, and I am out of Parliament now. I have got the grand title of the Honorary President of the Mindfulness All-Party Parliamentary Group.
Thanks, Chris. Good morning, I'm Matt Champion. I'm an Innovation Director from SAP, global software company. I'm also a mindfulness teacher and mindfulness ambassador. It's lovely to be here this morning.
Thank you. I don't know why, but should we start with a round of applause? Because that's a nice panel, isn't it? Thank you very much. So I'm going to say a few words in a moment, but we thought we should practice what we preach. So I'm just going to invite you to take just a moment to arrive and to do so however you want, but just to be aware of your presence in this place, in this moment. Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. So, now we're all properly here, I'd like to invite Jamie up to start the proceedings properly. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. I'm like Andrew said, I'm thrilled to see so many of you here. I thought we might have 30 or 40 people. When yesterday morning I was up in Sheffield and all of the trains were cancelled, I wondered whether I'd be here myself. So yeah, I'm really very happy that you all could make it. I'm going to speak a little bit about mindfulness in society more broadly, the role of the Mindfulness Initiative, which for those of you who don't know is a think tank or a think and do tank, or think and do and be tank, perhaps. A policy institute which came out of the teaching programme for politicians in the British Parliament. So we helped those politicians to convene the all-party parliamentary group and to run a programme of inquiry over the last 5 or 6 years. So one of the teachers in Parliament says that mindfulness doesn't come in through the front door. It doesn't hit you in the face. It kind of comes up through the floorboards in our own lives, in our own hearts and minds, but also perhaps that's the way it's come up in society. It's been very rarely has it been a kind of top-down initiative. Often it's people, champions of mindfulness, who have helped the practice be transformative for them, wanting to share it with their colleagues. And it's popped up in all kinds of strange places, like Parliament, like the Kenyan high-security prison system, like HSBC. And so that's probably most true through the workplace. Because even in a clinical context, actually it's been doctors sharing it with each other and then wanting to share it with their patients. And what we found in the NHS, for example, where mindfulness has really caught on and is now being provided for recurrent depression through the NHS in a really consistent way, it's where the ingredients were right. And one of the key ingredients is that you have a champion who really believes it, who has it in their bones to some extent, in the way that Chris Rowan was that champion in the British Parliament. And so it's a really critical element to maintaining in the integrity of what this represents, the pointing towards the depth of the practice, even when you're kind of introducing it in a kind of a short form or a light touch way. So we launched the Mindful Nation UK report that had some findings for the workplace in a launch event that was specifically for those from the private sector. And it was the enthusiasm that launch event generated which led to the creation of a private sector working group. And I think Andrew's going to say a bit more about how that got us to where we are now over the last few years. But first, the role of mindfulness in society and why this is a really important thing, not just for health, not just for the prevention of ill health, as thankfully the conversation is now turning towards, even at a national Secretary of State policy level. How can we not get ill in the first place? Not just for well-being, and even, dare I say it, happiness, if you're comfortable with that word. But also perhaps mindfulness has a critical role in this point in human history, because we are confronted with great challenges at a time when our capacities to meet those challenges are perhaps being undermined. The phrase age of distraction is often used. So our technology is fracturing our attention, our minds. At the same time as our work is radically changing, we're going to see automation, AI and robotics taking over a lot of our functions. And so to equip ourselves for this new world, we perhaps need to invest in what most makes us human, our main differentiator or unique selling point versus the machines, our ability to make other people feel heard and seen, to really relate deeply, constructively, in the way that an algorithm can't. But beyond that, rather than just our changing world in many positive and complicated ways, it is also undeniably a time of crisis. A meta-crisis, as some people have called it. And the climate crisis being perhaps just the sharpest end of that for us right now. And so to meet these challenges, we need to develop ourselves. Boris Johnson and others are fond of using the language of levelling up. Let's level up the North, let's level up Britain, level up the community, the economy. And I think that's helpful language. I think we should be developmental and levelling up all domains of society. But the one that's often ignored is ourselves, our own capacities of heart and mind, and our own sort of maturity and growth. And mindfulness, I think, has a key part to play here. And there are three ways in which we've identified that this could be particularly critical. First one is reclaiming our attention, developing our attention, so that we can attend to what is most important to us, rather than what vested interests or other powers in society want us to attend to. It can help us to take in more and different types of data, information, from our own bodies, but also from the world, and can help us to make sense of that data. Some say we're overwhelmed or inundated with knowledge or information but starving for wisdom. And perhaps this different way of attending to our world and our environment and what's going on inside of us can help us make sense of the world, so sense making. And the third one is it can underpin our ability to relate constructively with each other. So the workplace has a key role, I think, as well as perhaps apps and books and some of the high-profile stuff. It is the main way that mindfulness has developed in society, and that there's a responsibility that for us to make sure that we discuss what the best practice is in how it's delivered, what integrity and what the long-term potential of this is. Because if people are being offered mindfulness through the workplace, they're often perhaps less likely to take public courses and pay their own money for it. So there's a great opportunity, there's also a great responsibility. And at this time in human history, we perhaps need to get it right. We need to get it right. So this community hopefully will facilitate some of those conversations and support those champions that have done such great work to get us this far. Thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Can I invite Chris to come and say a few words? Chris, as you've just heard, was absolutely at the core of starting this journey. So, Chris, run.
Hi, it's great to be here in this fine building, and thank you all for coming here today, for making your journey here through Storm Ciara, or even before that, whenever you started your mindfulness journey, you're here, you're present here this morning. And we've all been on that journey, and for some of us it's been a difficult journey, but a very rewarding journey. I first met John Kabat-Zinn in 2013. He said, Chris, a word of advice. Work on your parachute before you need to open it. And when I lost in 2015 for the first time, second time I've lost, he emailed me and he said, Chris, how's it going? I said, John, I've been working on my parachute, I've pulled it and it works. And I think it's a great metaphor for getting across to yourself and to others that we all need to work on that parachute. And I pay tribute to the work that you've all done in your businesses, in your communities. It's not always an easy task. When we started in Parliament in 2013, when I first started the groups with the help of Lord Professor Richard Layard and Professor Mark Williams and Chris Cullen, people are a little bit wary, especially politicians who might be in the limelight, saying, people won't think I'm mad, will they? I said, no, they won't. So some came on a policy perspective to make sure there was no trail. Others came on a flourishing perspective, and some were truly in a position of where they needed equilibrium. And I think mindfulness, that's the beauty of mindfulness, as Jamie has mentioned, it's not just for those who are clinically depressed or suffering, but for those that want to flourish. So it's a gradation, it's a step from a position of imbalance to a position of balance and flourishing. So I wish you all well on your journeys, in your companies, and if there's anything that our group in Parliament can do, I have the title now, as I said, as Honorary President of the Mindfulness All-Party Parliamentary Group. About 4 years ago, we had parliamentary awards. I think GlaxoSmithKline and HSBC, Ernst & Young, Google and Jaguar Land Rover were given awards in Parliament. And that was pushed from one member of the group. He said, if we get this, Chris, it's easier to knock on the door of our chief execs and said, look, this is us in Parliament with ministers. This is serious business. So perhaps, Jamie, that's something our parliamentary group could revisit. But if there's anything that I can do to help you in your businesses, to push the envelope, to open doors, to say this is serious stuff that we're involved in. As Jamie said, this isn't just the rebalancing of an individual, of a company, of a country, but the planet. And if there's any time in human history that we need it, it is now. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So I'm now going to risk revisiting the Oscars from last night by thanking loads of people. But I do feel compelled to thank particularly Chris for his extraordinary work in Parliament. And as he just mentioned, giving this type of work, the kind of gravitas that it really needed and that it really needs and continues to need. So thank you, Chris. I don't think we'd be sitting here without that work. And thank you too to Jamie, because his leadership of the Mindfulness Initiative has been extraordinary over many years, and he's made this event possible. So thank you, Jamie, for your leadership and guidance. And also thank you to Mari, because we're in a really posh place. This is nice, isn't it? Have you seen the art? If you notice me with something underneath my coat, don't say anything. It's fine. So I just wanted to say a bit about why we here, why is this group here particularly, and why the Mindful Workplace community. Why does that matter? So I came to mindfulness, like many people, through a point in my life which was not a high point. I was finding my background, so that you know, is up until a year ago I was a senior leader in the UK Civil Service. I was a director, most recently a director in the Ministry of Housing, Communities and Local Government. And some time ago, as a senior leader in the civil service, I found that the pressure of those intense environments was getting to me. It was impacting on me. And so I reached out to a friend of mine who had a mindfulness practice, and perhaps unsurprisingly he said, why don't you try a mindfulness retreat? Now, I had known this guy for many years, and I had complete respect for his approach to life, and was absolutely not interested in it whatsoever. It was not for me. I had complete skepticism, but I thought I'll try anything once, So I went on this mindfulness retreat, and something clicked. Something clicked because there was a logic to this. There was a logic to developing a different relationship to my thoughts, so that rather than being overwhelmed by that amount of information, I could start to manage it more effectively. And the effect was completely transformational, as many of you who have practices in this room will understand. It was transformational to the point where I got a rapid promotion, and I do think that the two are connected, but I can't guarantee that will happen. And the promotion led to me going on to an extraordinary course that is led by the government called the Major Project Leaders Academy. It's run by Oxford, and I had this privilege of going to Side Business School. And I had, by this point, a 3-year practice, and I thought, well, the last thing I'm going to do is tell any of these senior leaders about this, because they're going to think I'm weird. And it was a residential course. It had 3 residential weeks, and of course, as you can probably tell, I like the sound of my own voice, so after a while, we were talking about leadership and how do we deal with stress, and I mentioned mindfulness, fully expecting them to get their tray at dinner and say, lovely, yeah, and go to another table. And bless them, they didn't. Several of them bit my arm off. They wanted to know more about it. They wanted to understand about it. They wanted to see what they could get from it, frankly, and how it could help them manage the stress that they were experiencing. So at the end of this, we had what they described as blank canvas time. So it was a bit where we could make up our own content, and they asked me, could you organise something? And I felt entirely unqualified to do any kind of mindful leadership or any kind of leading a practice. So I reached out to that friend of mine, and he said no, which I thought was very unmindful of him. But he kindly suggested a gentleman called Vishrapani, who has done various bits, including broadcasting on Radio 4, and he came along and did this session. Now, I cannot tell you how nervous I was. This was senior project leaders. Project managers are not always the most fluffy people in the world, and some of these people were in MOD and so on. So without reinforcing stereotypes, I was nervous about this gentleman coming along and trying to lead a practice, and I thought this could go really badly. And at the end of the session, 29 out of the 30 people came up and said that they'd got something from it. And the 30th was polite, and I thought that was a win. So I took this as a real sign that there was not just an appetite, but a need for this in the leadership roles that I had, both for my peers who I was working with, but also for the teams that I was putting under pressure to get things done as a leader. And so I came back to my role, and from then on tried to embed mindfulness in the workplace. I tried to bring it in any way I could, whether it was talking about it at away days, whether it was eventually leading short practices like we did today at the start of business meetings. And what I found extraordinary was the response that I got from the people that I was engaging with. But to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue how to do it. There wasn't a guidebook. There wasn't there wasn't a template for how to do this at the time. And I'm very pleased to say that we have some books here today which do go some way to help that, and that's fantastic. But there wasn't a template. What there was, and this made an absolute difference for me, was Vishwapani suggested, would you be able to join the private sector working group, which is the precursor of this group? And I jumped at the chance, partly because I like to belong to things, but mainly because I didn't know what I was talking about. And it was absolutely down to the confidence shared by people like Mari, their experience, and others who are in this room, who just by being there, just by making me feel not like a complete weirdo, and that I was actually onto something, it was so transformational. And so transformational, in fact, that over time I've become an accredited mindfulness teacher and am now leading practices, and I've written a book on the subject and other things. But all of that has come about because of the support, really, that I got from the group, which came out of Chris's work, which came from the leadership that we've received. And that's what I want to build on. This is the next logical step of that. I don't want anybody in any workplace who is championing mindfulness to feel alone. I want them to have a home where they can come and build on the knowledge, understanding, and kindness, frankly, of the people that I've had the great fortune of meeting. That's why we're here, to celebrate the launch of that. That's why it means so much to me to see you all coming here after such an interesting start to end of the weekend. That's why I'm so grateful that we're able to start this launch today. And I do want to just end on a couple more thank yous. I do want to thank the speakers, particularly as well as Chris and Jamie, but Matt and Mari. It is great to have champions for major, multinational, serious, money-making enterprises. As Chris said, this isn't left field. This isn't extraordinary. This should be the way that we run our businesses. And I've made the suggestion that my kids, they're 19 and 17. My daughter's act of rebellion at 19 is to think that mindfulness is fake news. That's fine. If that's a rebellion, I can live with that. But both of them are going to come out of university and they're going to be looking for organizations which have well-being programs and where's the mindfulness, because they've experienced it at school. So the question for employers now, I think, is not, why should I do mindfulness, but can I afford not to? If I want to recruit the best people, if I want to help my people to thrive and flourish, how do I get this mindfulness thing? How do I build on that? How do I embed it to my business? And so that's why I'm so delighted to see you all here. I really do think we have a fantastic opportunity, not just to provide that fantastic support, which I think we can do, but also to be the place where the conversation is had of where next with mindfulness in the workplace. And two other short thank yous. One to Teresa, who is around somewhere, who has just done such sterling work. Thank you, Teresa. We would not be here without you. And Denise at HSBC, who is also, thank you, Denise, who has done such sterling work to get here as well. And again, thank you all for being here. It's an absolute delight to see you. Thank you. And I'll introduce the next speaker. Should we have Mari? Would you like?
Okay. I'll just put that in my pocket. So as Denise has just walked in, this is in tribute to her, because it's hers actually, not mine. That's because I left mine in Sheffield, so. Okay, so well, hopefully you've had a really great sense of the heritage that we're all part of and been building on, and some amazing people who've really trod the path before us. And I guess what I just wanted to speak to you briefly about today is where we've got to with mindfulness at HSBC. We'll have time for questions at the end, and hopefully you will have lots of questions. So I'm not going to talk too much now, because I suspect there'll be lots of things that you want to know. But one of the things I just wanted to find out from me really is just a sense of the people in the room. if you wouldn't mind, just by show of hands, kind of what your interest is and what's brought you here, really. So if you are here or are trying to do something about mindfulness in your workplace at the moment, or thinking about doing it, could you raise your hands? Okay, so a few of you. I know you are, Sam, deep. It's working for us. If you're here because you're actually providing mindfulness in the workplace, could you show your hands? Okay, so a lot of you, great. So there's a huge amount of experience. Is there anybody who's here for an entirely different reason? You don't have to say what it is. But, okay. So my day job is as an architect, as I said. So based on what Andrew said, I very much felt like I was coming out at HSBC about 10 years ago when I was burning out. Quite frankly, I was on a global project and it was really, really demanding. Thankfully, I had a practice of mindfulness that I'd started about 20 years ago that I'd come to from panic attacks. And I was able to draw on that, and I absolutely do think it's what helped me not have to take a significant amount of time out, but also helped me actually ask for the help that I needed and had the courage to say, I don't want to do this anymore. So that was quite a profound experience for me, and it was really, really lovely when I started to talk about it at the bank, just to see how many other people were there and wanting to talk about it as well. So by no means did I feel alone from that point on, which has really been how it felt ever since. So we've come on quite a journey with mindfulness at HSBC. We launched a network in 2014 in the UK, and that has had a lot of support. We've had many thousands of people connect with us through that. But what we were really struggling with was to how we could actually provide it in a consistent way, and how do we kind of put something around this that helps us protect the brand, but also how we protect the people and make sure that we're offering it in a way that is appropriate, etc. Okay. That's working. So, given the audience in the room, I'm guessing I don't have to sell you on why mindfulness in the workplace might be a good thing to do. So I'm not expecting people to go through this, and we will make the slides available. But for us as a bank, I think it's very tempting, and even now, mental health is becoming a really key thing, particularly in large corporates, which is great because it hasn't really had that real full backing in terms of enabling people to feel comfortable talking about it and getting the help that they may need. What actually I think is probably the piece that isn't as tapped into as much, and probably is as important, certainly at HSBC, is the fact that the world is changing, as we know. It isn't getting any slower, and actually one of the things that we really need to be able to figure out as a corporation is how do we work in the future. We've got very complex society that we're trying to work with. Obviously, globally, things are changing only around us as a bank that we need to react to. We have 230,000 employees globally. It's a huge amount of people that we're trying to galvanise, and as we're trying to change and be agile around these things, I love all these buzzwords, by the way, so it's very hard to keep doing that when we're used to working in a certain way. So actually, where we're now exploring mindfulness far more than we have done is how we can tap into it around our collective intelligence and actually helping us perform. So whereas its help with the mental health side is absolutely critical, I think just as much for us as a bank, it's really important that we start to tap into those. So how have we done that? Well, we, as Andrew said, there wasn't really a blueprint for this when I started, and really starting was very much about coming out and feeling like I wasn't weird, and could I just sort of maybe share this thing that I snuck out of work at lunchtimes to do. And as I say, I was overwhelmed really by how many people were very interested to do it too. But we didn't quite know how we could actually industrialise it and scale it. And so there's always this fine balance, I think, with mindfulness, particularly in the workplace, of it not becoming another tick box or a lip service thing or something that we've just kind of rolled out and then we move on to the next thing. So for me, the passion is about introducing it, but introducing it in a way where there is a community and it can be embedded and there's a culture around it for those that are interested. So it's not to force it on anybody, but absolutely our experience is the more we do, the more demand there is, and the more we need to work out how we can satisfy that. So we were fortunate in that we linked in through Chris's work at the Parliament, but also Bangor University and Oxford University have done a lot, as you probably know, around this as well. And we linked in with a company called Kalapa, who have recently rebranded to Sophie Awaris. Awaris. Okay. And we've really, with them, curated a course that they were running, but something that we could tailor for us to try and run inside and internally. And the messaging up there is what we did literally in the last couple of weeks around when we're trying to talk to our leaders and help people understand why mindfulness is so important at HSBC. There are so many different angles to it, and this is our attempt to try and summarise why we think it's important. So there's a whole gamut of things, but fundamentally, it's our way of locking into our brain. So the headband is a workout for the mind. It's quite a useful thing to have on when you're being an architect and then you're being a mindfulness trainer. So you can kind of hopefully get the difference quite quickly. And actually, it's although it's a silly gimmick in many ways, we've got plenty of people now wearing them, and again, I think it's just that ability for people to make that statement that I am going to take some time out and I am going to look after what is most precious to us, but also precious to the organisation, which is our brains at the end of the day. So we've run a programme now for the last 3-4 years. We're piloting it, we're seeing how it works as we go, but we've had very, very good results so far. It's based on a similar model to the thing that you will hear from Matt from SAP, which is very much around train the people internally so that we can continue to sustain and scale this, and it helps it adapt and evolve to the needs of the organisation. With 230,000 people, there's no way that we in the UK will get this right for everybody and how it lands. And what we are trying to do is provide an umbrella and a community where we can try and put some standards, put a charter in place, and help people then take it into wherever they want to take it and adapt it. So that's the model. As you see, we've got big plans to try and scale this year and into the future and go global. So one of our biggest challenges again at the moment is we're still doing this in the UK, and we've got lots and lots of people in the global organisation who are really keen to see how they can get involved as well. So yeah, it's important to us that it's something that's led by the employees, but with external experts. It's important that we do it research focused so that we are testing and learning, doing all those good agile things, minimal viable products, etc. But that we are actually tailoring it to the needs of the organisation and not kind of mandating how this should work. So we have a champion programme. We've got 4 levels. We've currently piloted up to 3. Train the trainer we haven't got to yet, and we'll see whether we get there in the next few years. Hopefully we will. But in terms of the research that we're getting back, we are getting, which I think is fairly typical of other organisations as well, but we are getting the increases in wellbeing factors and the increases in the what we're calling emotional quotient type factors around emotional intelligence, empathy, but also the problem solving, those sorts of things as well. We will come out with more detailed research on that hopefully this year. But yeah, the thing for me though that is most rewarding, and there's a couple of colleagues in the room, is just the community and the people that you get to share this with. So although we get to share this wider and outside of HSBC, it is sometimes a bit of a lonely world. Actually being able to come together with colleagues that you work with day to day and actually connect over something like this is just incredible actually, and the ability to help solve the challenges in a very creative and innovative way is the thing that's probably surprised me the most. So thank you very much, thank you all for coming, and I guess with that I will hand over to Matt.
Thank you, Mari. Who'd like to take a nice deep centering breath together? Shall we do that? So good morning. It's really a great pleasure to be here and talk about why mindfulness is so important at SAP. For those of you that don't know who we are, and I imagine a few of you in the room probably do, we're a large software company, 100,000 people globally, 25 billion revenue. We sell software in pretty much every kind of area. So when the guys are talking about artificial intelligence, machine learning, taking over the world, we've got a great responsibility to help develop products that augment reality and humans, not take the world over. So, I introduced myself early on. I'm an innovation director at SAP, so I have a day job. My day job is really helping people to think creatively, think differently, and really to develop new ideas and develop new ways of tackling business problems. And interestingly enough, mindfulness fits very well with that, indeed, as I keep being reminded of and keep learning. So why is it important at SAP? You know, we're a large German software company. 3 Ps essentially. Purpose. So our purpose, if you go to our website, you'll see SAP helps the world run better and improve people's lives. You'll see in that purpose statement, there's nothing about technology, there's nothing about, you know, the literal thing that we do. And actually, I'm really proud to be able to tell lots of stories that I've been involved with where we have helped the world run better, we have helped improve people's lives. But this isn't just from a let's get involved in the CSR project, no disrespect. This is actually from a meaning and from a purpose perspective. And that really links into the second point, which is people. So helping our employees to thrive at work and unlock their potential. That's really important. We have some really, really, really good people. We're at the top end of the software sector, and we have some lovely people working with us. But they're all suffering from the human condition, as we all are. And often they need help and they need support, or they need to the speaker's point before, they need to actually realise what their full potential is. And what we support is really actually helping people to realise that. And then it links in with passion. So actually helping employees connect with their values. And I'm sure that many of you in this room have done value-based work and actually helping people to connect to values. When people actually understand what their core and key values are, and a lot of people have never been asked, wonderful things start to happen. They're usually a bit alarmed and a bit shocked to begin with. But then when you actually help them to direct that into a passion at work and in life, and we can't always bring people's passions into work, but I've got a lot of examples where we have actually, including myself. Wonderful things happen. So we really believe, the reason why it's important, and we have a Chief Mindfulness Officer at SAP, so my mindfulness boss is Peter Bosterman. He basically says that when people are present at work, they're more productive, they're happier, they show up for each other. So really it's about making sure that employees' well-being is looked after in the workplace. But I always put in life as well, because at the end of the day, I used to say work-life balance, then I used to say life-work balance, now I just say life. We spend a lot of our life in work, so actually why can't it be a nice place to be? Why can't we get on? Why can't we have that sense of oneness, etc.? So people, purpose and passion through presence. And how do we do that? So how do we approach mindfulness at SAP? We have a partner called Search Inside Yourself, who you may have heard of, Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute. They originally came from Google. A guy called Chade Meng Tan wrote the book called Search Inside Yourself, and they developed it into a not-for-profit organisation which is now spun out of Google, and they're now our partner for Search Inside Yourself. We have a global mindfulness practice. As I said, we're lucky enough to have a Chief Mindfulness Officer, Peter, who has really been on this journey for about the past 8 years. We piloted with Search Inside Yourself. It's a 2-day course. We kind of call it our gateway course. It brings people in. You don't have to come in through that route. You can join the mindfulness practice without having to do this. But actually, this is the thing that really helps to wake people up, even people that are already awake. It's the most amazing course. I'm biased, of course, but it talks about emotional intelligence, mindfulness, and the neuroscience that sits behind it. And as most of you probably know in this room, the neuroscience is growing just exponentially around this area. So we've got a lot of left-brainers in our organisation, a lot of scientists, a lot of people that are very technical. Again, stereotypes, sorry. But they need the evidence, they need the science, they need to understand what's actually happening in their brain, in their body. And so there's a very nice blend of practice, of science, and of emotional intelligence that come together to form Search Inside Yourself. And on that course on day 2, this is where we connect people with core values and we develop a vision. People are worried when people develop visions at SAP because they're like, Matt, they're going to leave. What if they want to go and do something else? And I'm like, let them go and do something else. If they want to do something else, that's fine. But often people don't leave, and they find something that really connects them in with their purpose and their passion. And this is what we really want. So you all know in this room that this statement at the bottom here, mindfulness leads to improved well-being, satisfaction, focus, creativity, and lower stress. How do we know that? Now, obviously, we have to measure this. Personally speaking, I don't need the measurement, but obviously working in a very large corporation, as with Nari, I'm sure, you have to prove the results. You have to show that this is actually having an impact. This is one study that we did. It's a self-evaluation of participants that took the course, and actually we measure it 4 weeks before and 6 months after. And no great shakes, what we see is an increase in overall well-being, happiness, meaning, satisfaction, the ability to focus on more than one thing at a time, and also an increased level of mental clarity, creativity, ideas and insights. And being in innovation, again, I'm a little bit biased towards that side, I want to get the best out of people. I really want people to be in that creative zone, to really develop the very best ideas, whether they're a customer, partner, an employee, whomever. So that one I'm particularly interested in, and I'm exploring that and the linkage between creativity and design thinking and human-centered design, but I'll talk to you about that separately. And then obviously really important, decreased feelings of stress and being overwhelmed. If you want even more measurements than that, again, don't always include these in every presentation that I do, but we've seen over a 200% return on investment from the mindfulness program. We also know that if we can improve our employee engagement index by at least 1%, that is 50 to 60 million euros of operating profit for us. If we can also improve the business health culture index by 1%, that is 85 to 95 million in operating profit for us. So those numbers speak to the board. And when we're talking to the board about this, it's very important that we're able to actually measure what we're doing. So I wanted to give you some takeaways. Find others with hearts like yours. How do you do this? So you have to. There are people within organisations that don't think it's weird, and you find them and you come out and it happens. Connect with other organisations. This is a great forum to do that. I've already spoken to 3 or 4 people this morning and already got some new insights about various things. So connecting and talking with others really helps, obviously. Start small and grassroots, but link it to authentic executive sponsorship. So you can do a bit of both. You can do a bit of bottom up and top down, and that's what Peter certainly did. And Peter's actually going to come and talk for the Mindful Workplace community, this forum, this year, hopefully in a few months' time. So you'll hear a little bit more about how we navigated that, because we're a big corporate with a bureaucratic structure. We're trying to simplify, but having those corporate executives actually talk about their own personal practice, actually going on video, speaking to the press about it's really important. But also those small grassroots shoots, starting in offices, just getting people together, having small practice groups. Context and language and knowing your business drivers. For us, the way you talk about it is quite important. You don't want to dumb it down, you don't want to simplify it, you don't want to go too far one way or the other. But actually, when we're in business, when we're in meetings with our board, we need to be talking about focus, productivity, and well-being of staff. When you start to talk to people about, would you like your staff to be more focused at work? Would you like people to be more focused on the task in hand? Most people don't disagree with that. Finding the right partner is important. For us, we have one main partner, but we're in a similar situation. We have 40 teachers like me around the world that have day jobs. This takes up quite a lot of my time, actually, which is a lovely thing, and my management support me doing it. But actually, you need the right partner. For a large company like ours, we need the curriculum, we need the content, we need that refresh, especially with the neuroscience changing all the time, updating all the time, we need that. For us, no disrespect, this is not owned by Wellbeing. It's very tightly linked to Wellbeing, of course. As an organisation within SAP, it's very important, but actually it's owned by our Global Leadership Development Programme. And when we talk about Search Inside Yourself, the language we use to describe it is, it's a mindfulness-based emotional intelligence program for leaders. But not just for leaders who lead people, leaders of yourself. So it's actually for everyone within the company. But we think it's very important that it's actually seen as a development program. So we've tried to we don't shy away from mental health and helping people that need the help. Of course we don't. But actually it's very important that we show our employees this is a program to thrive and develop and flourish. So with that, I'd like to say thank you, and happy to talk to you more about this at the end. Thank you.